Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Parlett. I'm a computer science and mathematics major here at Drexel University, and I'm excited to tell you a bit about my research in connectomics today. So neuroscientists have delineated the brain into different functional regions as captured by a human brain atlas. There are many of these, we'll just work with just one of them though. Through a combination of neuroimaging and this brain atlas, we can construct a connectivity map of a subject's brain. This map can be captured by a connectivity matrix. This describes the connectivity between the regions as delineated by our atlas. This matrix is generally what we refer to as the human connectome. The structural connectome is derived from diffusion MRI, and it captures the anatomical connections between regions in our atlas. The functional connectome is derived from functional MRI, and it captures the functional interactions between regions in our atlas. Communication between these regions, we would say. So our main research question is, what are the dynamics of functional interactions between anatomically unconnected regions? One way researchers have attempted to answer this question in the past is with something called communication models. In this work, what we do is propose a new communication model, Subnet Communicability, and we show that it is more efficacious than those previously proposed. So let's talk a bit more about communication models. What they do is describe a process by which to simulate signal propagation between brain regions. In this way, they attempt to explain functional dynamics. They attempt to explain how function can arise from structure. In a more practical sense, what they do is give us a way to augment a subject's structural connectome into a simulated functional connectome. We augment the structural connectome to get a functional connectome, therefore trying to infer function from structure. So how do we quantify the efficacy of a communication pattern? Well, we measure the similarity between our empirical and our simulated functional connectome. We quantify the coupling between structure and function induced by our model in this way. This similarity, as measured by the Pearson's R correlation between these two matrices, is what we refer to as the SFC of a communication model. So to discuss a few communication models that we're going to reference in this work, first, we'll talk about the direct communication model. So this posits that only directly connected brain regions communicate. We know this is false. We already know that indirectly connected brain regions communicate. But the SFC of this baseline pattern is something to measure other patterns against. It is just a reference. It's represented by the structural connectome. The weighted variant of the shortest path model posits that regions propagate signal only through the strongest connection between them. The thickest bundle of fibers connecting those regions, essentially, we would say. We would say that's the most reliable, strongest connection. It's historically important, as it was long assumed to be the communication pattern of the brain, because its efficiency fit with what we understood about brain economy. However, it was criticized for requiring global knowledge of network topology and not having any redundancy. So communicability, on the other hand, posits that signal is propagated through all possible intermediary regions diffusively, parallel communication through multiple pathways, so it's highly redundant. Previous research has shown it to have a higher SFC than any other global pattern, and obviously it requires no knowledge of network topology. So it's the best known so far. However, its high energy consumption, it's flooding the network with many messages. This clashes with what we know about brain economy. Subnet communicability is a constraint of communicability. It posits that signal is propagated through a subset of intermediary regions diffusively. This subset is what we refer to as a subnet or subnetwork. As a constraint of communicability, it propagates less messages and is therefore far more efficient. We're not flooding everywhere, we're flooding only a few regions. However, it still maintains the main benefit of communicability, namely redundancy. So it's more efficient than communicability while still being redundant. So the first thing we wanted to look at was, how does the size of a subnetwork affect the structure-function coupling of your communication pattern? And considering a lot of randomly sampled subnetworks for multiple subjects, we look at their highest correlating subnetworks and we graph each of their trends in gray. The average of all of these is the purple line we see, and what we observe is generally a trend downward as we increase the size of the subnetwork, all the way to 100, which would be communicability with the full network. So a subnet of size just 3 regions is where we kind of see a peak. This is when the SFC of a pattern is highest. So the next thing we looked at was just considering subnets of 3 regions. Let's look at a lot of the ones that have high structure-function coupling with our communication pattern. So a collection of really good subnetworks, essentially. And what we observed is that in these networks, we see the default mode network and ventral regions occur most frequently. So this means that if you're a subnetwork which shows high SFC, you're likely to have regions from the DMN and ventral functional networks. So then what we showed was that we can pick a subnetwork of 3 regions, namely the 3 most frequently occurring regions in this plot, from the DMN and ventral networks, and considering the average SFC of subnet communicability over the entire cohort, our sample, we can see that its average is much higher than all the other communication models we tested here. In particular, we can see its group difference with communicability is also very high. So its mean is much higher than everything else with significant group difference. So this was a very strong result for us. We were really happy about this. So the main takeaways here are that subnet communicability shows higher SSC across the sample than other models tested, indicating that it is the most efficacious of this collection of 4 models. Subnet communicability is more consistent with brain economy. Its efficiency and redundancy lie between shortest path and communicability. It's a good midpoint. So yeah, thank you for your time, thank you for watching, and thank you to all of my collaborators at Drexel and CHOP. Without them, this research would not have been possible.